Okay. Right, guys. First things first, thanks for joining us. Apologies for all the hiccups earlier. But like I said, we are doing Microsoft Excel 2016. And we will start by just taking you through some of the main features before we get into activity 1.47. Okay, first, like I was saying, in the top left-hand corner, you've got the clipboard tool where you can do your copy paste, your cutting. You've got your format painter. Next to it, you have your font grouping where you can change your fonts, your sizing. You can make it bold, italic, underlined. You can put in your borders. Okay, you can use your shading and you can change the text color. And like I was trying to do earlier is to actually go into the font grouping and just try and hide this away. And then it will show you the different fonts you can use. There's different effects you can apply to your text. You can put strike through. That means like when you're writing words and you have a line through it, like we had in the test. You can have superscript. You guys know what superscript and the subscript is. That's the x to the power 2 that we had in Microsoft Word. And this is like H2O, the subscript. And you can have your borders, your fill, etc. And you can even protect your cells. But we'll get into all that detail later once we start utilizing that functions. Next to that, we have the alignment grouping. You have here, you have your, let's just put my annotation back on again. Okay, let me just put it at the bottom. Okay, so in your there, you can see I'm showing you that is your horizontal alignment, and that's your vertical ones. Okay, if you guys can remember what we've done in Microsoft Word. So in Excel, it's much easier to do the horizontal and the vertical. That is to increase or decrease your indent. This is slightly different, and we'll talk about it once we get into an activity later. And then you have this ability to write text at different angles. I'll just show you a couple of examples. So you can write counterclockwise, you can write clockwise, vertically up, vertically, etc. Then you have something new. It's similar to when you're using hyphenation within Microsoft Word, when you're wrapping text, and that facility we will use later. One that's quite useful is the merging center. Can you remember when we needed to merge cells within Microsoft Word? Similar functionality to that. Next to that grouping, we have the general grouping, and in here, you can change your different number formats, okay? You can, basically, if you're using a number, you can decide how many decimal places you want. You can use whatever thousand separator you want to specify. You can use, set something as currency, or you can use it as accounting. You can put in a date, different formats for that, time, percentages, etc. Okay. Next to that, you have different styles that you can apply. You can do conditional formatting. Say, for instance, you want to highlight all the students that have more than 80%. You can put them in a certain color. Anybody that's in the 70 to 79% bracket, you can use another color. So you can do that type of things. You can even format your table where you can basically change the different shadings. It's quite useful if you want to play around with that. You have different cell styles that you can apply to specific cells so that it makes it easier for you to see what you need to do. This here is when you're inserting or deleting cells or columns, and I'll talk about that later. And then there's the formatting you can use to change your row heights, your column widths, etc. And there's a lot of functionality, and a lot of this functionality you'll only get from Office 2016 upwards. Okay. Next, we have the editing tools. This is where your auto sum appears. That's your fill. We'll talk about that later. And then we can erase stuff. There's a sort and filter, and you can find and select. And the last one is then an analyzing of data. Okay, that's just to give you an overview of what is available within Microsoft Excel. I'm just going to zoom my screen so you guys can get a bigger view. Okay, any questions so far? Okay, nothing. Okay, let's go over to page 157, activity 1.47. Okay. Here we are being required to work out the percentages for the computer practice test marks of those students. Just ignore the part that says out of 80 because it's not out of 80. And you need to take care to place the cell pointer in the correct cell before typing. Okay, what does that actually mean? Okay, if you look here on the top row, these are called your columns. Okay, and down here, these represent rows. Can you remember within Microsoft Word when we done the tables, when we done inserting tables? So this is similar to that, except in this case, your table has already been prepared for you, if you want to call it that. Okay. So what you need to do now, we need to type the information just as it appears here. And I'm going to give everybody a chance to then type it. I will pause the recording, and then once we are done typing, I will then resume recording. Is that okay with everybody? Can I give you about 5 minutes to type it? You can watch on your screen and you'll see what I'm typing. For instance, the computer test marks, I'm not going to start typing it from column B. I'm typing in column A. Okay. And like I said earlier, there is no facility here to capitalize text. So if you're going to need to type something in caps, you need to put your caps lock on your keyboard and then type it as needed. Okay. So I'm giving you guys 5 minutes to do that. I'm pausing the recording until then. Okay, so like I said, you can then, if you need to edit the information, you click on F2. So I can backspace and then I can change whatever I need to change. Or alternatively, I can just go, click in my formula bar and start typing. Okay, that will allow you then to change your information as needed. Are you guys done typing your information? No comment. Hello, is anybody there?
Yes, sir.
Okay, let's just check it. Okay, just give me a couple of minutes to finish my text. Okay, and we're going to resize the columns and stuff like that afterwards. For the moment, we're just typing in the text that's been given to us. Oh, I forgot somebody. Okay, I've accidentally forgot to add in somebody in there. You guys know how to add in a row. So what you would do, you click on the specific row you want to enter information for. And can you remember I showed you the insert option? So you click on that insert and you're going to go insert sheet rows. Okay. So in my case, I can then go ahead and type in the new information. All right. So I've done typing my information. So let's start now doing all the manipulation. Okay, the first thing when you're doing manipulation of your data, before you resize your columns, if there's anything that you need to center across your columns, first do that. And I'll show you why. If I had to resize my text, my column now, just watch what happens. I'm going to go and I'm going to wait until I see that icon that's showing on the screen now, which is the two arrows pointing to the side with a center line. Okay. So if I double click on that, it now resizes it and makes it auto fit based on the actual biggest item within the column. So in this case, computer test marks basically takes it up. And if I go check the sizing on that column, you see it changed it to 21.71. Okay, so I'm going to undo that now. And I'm first going to center that. And in order for me to center the information, I click on cell A1. I keep my mouse down, my left click, and I take it across to E1, and then I release. Okay. Once I've done that, I click on the merge and center function. Okay. Can you guys see that? And then I basically click on that, and then it will center that across those columns. Okay. So if I go back to column A, I wait until I get my down arrow, I click on it, and then I go to the right-hand side to where the column ends, and I wait until I see that icon appearing, then I double click on it. Okay, can you remember the sizing just now was 21.71? So if I check my sizing now, it's only 15.29. So you see the difference between formatting or changing the column width when you haven't done the spread across different columns. So it's important that you do that, especially in exam time, because you can actually lose marks that way. Okay. So now similarly, I'm going to resize the columns in column C. So I click on column C. I go to the right until I see that icon appearing. I double click. Similarly for column E, I go to column E, click on my column, go to the right until I see that, and I double click. Have you guys been able to do that?
No, sir, can you please repeat from the start?
From the start. Okay, I'm undoing that. And I'm undoing the sizing across the columns. Okay. So I'm going to go now, click on cell A1. Okay. I hold my left mouse in until I've selected it up to E1. Okay, because that's where we need to, the instruction says we need to merge and center the main heading in A1 to E1. Okay. So once I've done that, I click on, you see that option there that says merge and center. I click on that. Okay. All right. So once I've done that, I'm now going to click on my column. So I click on the column number. So column A until once I get my down arrow, the black down arrow, then I go to the right hand side until I can get that icon showing the center line with two arrows pointing outward. I double click. Okay. And that automatically then resizes that column based on the largest item within that column. And then similarly, I wait until I get to column C. And you see the down arrow pointing there. I click on that. And then I go to the right, to the end of that column, and I double click. Okay. Column E, I select my column. I go to the end of the column, I double click. Have you guys got that now?
Thank you, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay, right. So now once we've done that, the next thing we need to do, we need to change, we need to make column A1 to E1, we need to make it bold. Okay. And the next instruction is then you change the column headings in rows 2 and 3 to bold. So those two. And the way I'm doing it is I'm clicking on it, holding my mouse key down until I've got the whole section selected. And then I can click on bold to make that whole section bold. I can do it individually if I wanted to. So I can click on that cell. If I just unbold that, and I can go to each one individually and do it that way too. You can decide whichever is easier for you, but I just find it easy if I can do the whole section at once. Okay. All right, once that is been done, we now need to change the column width, which we've already done. Right. The next information is we need to use the following information to complete the formulas. So place your cell pointer in C4. So everybody just go click on cell C4. Okay. And the way you do this, you always start your formula with equals. So you go equals. And in this case, our formula is going to be B4. So I can click on the cell B4. Yes. Can you see how there's a dotted line that appears over that cell? It shows you where your cell actually is, where your formula starts. So then you use a divide sign, which is above. It's your backslash key, which as you can see there on the screen. Okay. And then you're dividing it by 70 and your multiply is your star sign. Multiply by 100 and you hit enter. Okay. So now we've got a nice long number, which we're going to manipulate in a few minutes. Okay. So now we need to place our cell pointer in E4. So we click on E4 and we're going to do that formula there. And in order to start our formula, we always start with equals. And then we click on cell D4. You see how it's highlighting it? Divided by 50, multiplied by 100. Enter. Okay. So now you've got that in there. So now we need to then copy that information down for the rest of the students to get their marks for them. Okay. So way we do that, there's two ways of doing it. The first way, I'm going to use the copy paste method. Okay. So for Cindy's mark that I've got there, which has already been calculated for Cindy, I go up to my clipboard tool. I click on copy. And then I select the cells I want to paste it in. Once I've done that, I click on paste. Okay. That's the one method. All right. Do you guys know of any other method that you can actually utilize? So if I wanted to use this, the one that the formula in E4 to get it to E5 through E13, can you guys see at the bottom right-hand corner, there's a little block that appears over the cell. Okay, that's called an autofill handle. So what you do is you click on that autofill handle, and the way you know you're at the right place is there's a plus sign that actually appears. So you click and you hold and you drag it down until you get to the bottom. Okay. So that then copies that formula from cell E4. It copies it down to E5 to E13. Okay. So now you've got it in there, right? So the next thing we need to do, welcome Kelly. You don't have to be worried. We've got a recording of the meeting, so you can always catch up later. All right. So what we need to now do is we need to use our autofill handle, which we've done. And now we need to draw borders as indicated below. Okay. So in order to draw my borders, I'm going to select the cells that I need to put the borders around. The first one I'm going to do is because the entire table is going to have a border around it. I'm putting that, I'm selecting all the text within that table. And then I go to my border tool over here. And I'm going to use the thick outside borders. Okay. Okay, that will then put the border on the whole table. And the second thing I'm going to do is I'm going to put my cursor and just select my top headings, and I'm going to use the same border for just the headings. Okay, because that's how they've done it here. And then what they want us to do is to use a light background color to enhance the appearance of the spreadsheet. Okay, there's two ways you could have done this. One, you could have gone into your styles and formatted it as a table using this. But using this style is going to completely change your table. You see there's the warning coming up for our call ending in 10 minutes. But we will dial back in again, okay? So don't worry about that. So once we've done that, we now need to select each row individually. So I'm selecting row 1, which already has its spread across A1 to E1. And I'm going to go use my full color, okay? And I'm using a light blue to do that one. And then I go to row 3. I click on A3 to E3, and I use my full color. Similarly, I click on A5, hold my key in, my click in until I get to E5. And then I select my full color, okay? So for every second row, I'm basically doing that. All right. So I basically apply that there. And now table looks nice and fancy. So the last thing we actually need to do before we're going to save this document, we need to format the answers to display integers. Okay, what does that big word mean? Integer is actually just a whole number. So for instance, the 71.42857143, all that decimal points we need to remove. Okay, so there's two ways of doing that. The first way, and that's probably the easier one, is I go into my number grouping. I click on my number grouping at the bottom. I click on number, and there where it says decimal places, I reduce that to 0. I click OK. Okay, that's the one method. The second one, if I use the second Google's result as an example, I can also use the decrease decimal point option. So it will decrease the decimals at 1 digit at a time. Okay, so that's the two methods. But like I said, the easier one to use, I select everything within that column. I go into my number grouping. I click on number. And then I change my decimals to 0. And I click OK. All right. Any questions on that one? So what we also now need to do, and there's two ways of doing this. I just need to move this again out of the way. Okay. What I want to do now is I want to put in a header footer for us. Okay. So I'm going to click on the page layout menu item. And I'm going to go into the page setup grouping. Okay. And then I'm going to go into my header footer area. Okay. And I want you to put in a custom footer. So I click on custom footer. Then it gives me 3 sections. It gives me the left section, the center section, and the right section. So in the left, it means going to be left aligned. I'm going to put my name and surname. And on the right side, I'm going to put activity 1.47. And then I click OK. So this is very similar to what we've done in Microsoft Word. Okay. So now what we need to now do is once we've done that, we click OK. And if I do a print preview and go file, print, it should show me a print preview shortly. Okay, there we go. Can you see there at the bottom, there's my name is a left footer and the activity is a right footer. Okay. And the last but not least thing that we need to do, we need to save the document. We're going to go File, Save As. And if you were at college, you would save it under your student drive. But because you're not at college, you can save it under your documents. So I'm going to save this under my documents. And you can save the document as activity 1.47 comp tests. Okay. So what I suggest we do, because this activity is basically done and we only got 4 minutes left of the meeting, let's reconvene and we do the next activity 1.48 and 1.49. Okay. Sorry about this, but I mean, this is Zoom for you. So we're going to quickly end the session and then we will reconvene in a few minutes. Yes. Yes, Nicole.
I am struggling to find the footer.
The footer.
I'm struggling to find the footer.
Okay, let me do that again. You click on page layout. Okay. Then you go into the page setup grouping. And there on the top, there's tabs, header, footer. So you click on the header there, header, footer tab. And then you click on custom footer. Have you got that, Nicole?
Yes, sir. Thank you.
So now you can then put your name and your activity in there. Everybody else, is there any other questions? No questions. Okay. All right, guys, I will reconvene in about 2 minutes. So unfortunately, this is going to dial back in again, okay?